Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. This is my first time meeting Ganat. I want to make sure I pronounce your name right. Is that how you pronounce it?
Well, I say Ginat, and
Ginat.
anything close to that is fine.
Okay, so Ginat. All right.
Yes. Yeah, like
Wonderful to
guitar,
meet you.
and
Like
it's
guitar?
not.
Okay.
Ginat.
Ginat. Well, it's wonderful to meet you virtually. And thank you so much for having me. So hello, everybody. I am Chef Valerie Wilson. I'm also known as Chef Val, and my business name is Macroval. So people sometimes ask me, and that's the names there. I am coming to you from Westland, Michigan. So I live in the United States. I have been teaching healthy, whole foods, macrobiotic cooking classes for 25 years. It's my 25th anniversary. And also I am vegan, so all my recipes are vegan. I am the author of 5 cookbooks, and I'm coming out with my 6th cookbook, like in a few weeks, and the 6th one is all desserts. And I offer cooking classes on a regular basis. I have classes every week. And every month I have different topics. I'm always coming up with new recipes. And I also have a Facebook Live where I go live every Wednesday at 8 o'clock, where I would love for everybody to join me on my live, because it's an opportunity for us to connect live like we're connecting here. So when I teach my cooking classes through Zoom, I know it's virtual and I'm talking and everything, but I love audience participation. So if you guys have questions, you're more than welcome to ask the question. Now you could type it in the chat and I'll kind of every once in a while, or
Ginat.
Enat, yeah, she could look and see. And then I think towards the end, there's going to be an opportunity where people can unmute themselves and they can ask me questions towards the end too, which would be great.
And Chef
So
Val, can we know your 9-star key?
I don't know what it is.
Okay, then we'll leave that.
Yeah, we could figure it out later, but
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
not sure what that is. Okay, so this recipe is out of my year-round healthy holiday dishes cookbook.
Wait a minute,
It
hold
is-
that thought.
Okay.
Just,
Did you press?
huh?
Did you press the record button?
Yeah, sure did.
Oh, okay.
Okay, give me a smile. Thank you. Got it.
You took a picture?
I did.
So this cookbook doesn't just have Christmas and Thanksgiving. This has recipes for Easter, 4th of July, Labor Day, Memorial Day. I went through the whole year. And my tofu Salisbury that I'm going to teach you, I put in the Valentine's Day section, because for Valentine's Day, I was thinking of like rich, foods, but also foods that are good for your heart. And tofu is excellent for your heart. And so that's why it's in that cookbook. All right, let's get started cooking. So during the cooking class, I'll move the camera a little bit because I like people to get an up close version of what's going on. Okay. So no, that's not any better. I'm like the smallest person as I'm doing the demo, and I like to be able to see what I'm doing. Can everybody see me like on the large view so you can see up close like what I'm doing? Yeah. Because I'm like a small box in the corner. But anyways, so the main ingredients in our recipe is tofu. Now I know you probably can't get this brand because again, I'm in Michigan, but I wanted to show you like when you go to the store and what you're shopping for. So you want to get a firm, fresh tofu or extra firm. You can get firm or extra firm for this recipe. Fresh tofu means that it's packaged in water. That's what you want. There's another type of tofu called silken tofu that's on the shelf. It's not packaged in water. That type of tofu will not work as good in this recipe. You really want the fresh that's in water. And actually the fresh that's in water is healthier for you because the one that's on the shelf does have a preservative in it. So this one is better. So then what you want to do is you want to, first thing we're going to drain the tofu. I just use a knife, cut it open like so, and get it out. There's our tofu. So tofu right out of the package has no flavor. So we don't want to go ahead and eat it right now. But what's so great about tofu is it'll take on any flavor you put with it. It'll soak it up and absorb it, and then it becomes very delicious. It's so versatile that way that you can use it in a savory dish like this, or you could use tofu in a dessert dish because it's so versatile. Now I'm going to press the tofu, which I don't press tofu often in my recipes. There's only a few recipes I press them. This is one of them. Now you don't need anything fancy to press your tofu. I've got 2 plates here. We're just going to press it between 2 plates. That's all you need to do. For this recipe, you're going to want the tofu to be in relatively kind of a thick chunk. So I cut it in half, like so. And then I cut each one of those halves in half again. So we have 4 pieces. When you get 1 pound of tofu, we've got 4 pieces. And we're just going to put them on the plate like so. Now pressing tofu, what does that achieve? That presses out any excess water that's in the tofu, and then you get rid of that water. That's what pressing tofu does. Clean up our mess here. All right. Another plate on top of it, like so, and then you put some weight on it. So I actually did one before class because you want to press it for 15 minutes. So you can see here, I've done this press in between 2 cookie sheets. Another way you could press it, but you can see I've got some glass bowls on top. You don't need a lot of weight. It's just a little bit of weight because we're just pressing it very gently. All right. So now I just put it over here. This will be the next batch, basically. I'll set that aside. So this has been pressing for 15 minutes. There's a little bit of water there, not much. We're going to get rid of that water because we don't need it. Tofu, this is where your protein is because it is made from soybeans, right? This is an excellent source of protein, and it's easy to digest protein also. Soybeans have, see where I can see where the camera is so you can see the tofu. Calcium, iron, zinc, it's all in tofu. Tofu, when I teach tofu in my cooking classes, I tell people, you may not be able to remember everything that the tofu, the health benefits of it. So I tell my students they should remember tofu has anti-cancer properties. That's what tofu has, anti-cancer properties. Because, you know, there's a lot of things out there you need to remember. And some of the things that are in tofu that have the anti-cancer properties are things like phytic acid, which inhibits the growth of tumors. It has protease inhibitors, which is a universal anti-carcinogen and may block the action of some cancer-causing enzymes. Tofu also contains genistein, which may stop the spread of some forms of cancer at an early stage. And that genistein that's in the tofu also can help prevent heart disease. Remember, I told you tofu is really good for your heart. So this is your protein, and protein feeds and nurtures your muscles in your body, keeps your muscles strong. And the largest muscle in your body is your heart. Is she patting it dry? No, there's no need to pat it dry. No, it's fine just like this. No. In fact, you want a little bit of water on it because we're going to put some flour on it. You want the flour to stick. Now, again, as I said, tofu has no flavor right now. So let's add a little bit of flavor to begin with. I'm going to take some good quality sea salt, and I'm going to put some salt on the tofu like so. Just a little sprinkle. Now, I'm going to use a little bit of white pepper. That's up to you. If you like white pepper, you could use it. If you don't like white pepper, you could not use it. I am not a fan of black pepper. Black pepper to me is very hot and spicy, so I don't use that. But white pepper's much more mellow, right? So we did one side. Now you're going to do the other side. You usually want to season both sides of the tofu to make it flavorful. A little bit on there, like so.
Val, what do you like about the pepper flavor?
The white pepper?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is supposed to be like a Salisbury,
Mm-hmm.
usually a long time ago when I ate meat, you would season the meat with salt and pepper. That's what they do. The white pepper has like a mellow, it's not pungent, it's spicy. But like I said, black pepper kind of burns my tongue because it's so hot, where white pepper from the white peppercorns, it's not as hot. It doesn't burn my tongue. It just gives it like a richness, basically. All right, so get yourself a shallow bowl of some type because we're going to dip the tofu into some flour. So I'm going to use some oat flour. Oat flour is my favorite gluten-free flour made from rolled oats or whole oats. So this has calcium, iron, and it's also good for your heart. Another ingredient that's heart healthy. Now you could use any type of flour you want. This is just a gluten-free version. You know, you could use spelt. I love spelt, but
Could you use almond?
yes, you could. Any type of flour. All right. So you're just going to take the tofu and put it in the flour. Put flour on one side, put flour on the other. Sometimes I like to put the flour down. I want to make sure you can see what I'm doing. Put the flour like so. So it's covered in flour. We're going to do that for all 4 pieces, just like so. Cover all 4 pieces. We can't see what Val is doing. Please adjust camera.
You're ahead of us, Val. That's okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. Like I said, I'm not the largest person that's on the screen. So I'm the small little picture in the corner. Usually I'm the largest person and I can see what's going on. So anyways, here is the flour. Here's the tofu covered in flour, just like so. All right, I'm going to set that aside for now, because now we're going to work on the Salisbury part. I want you to see the cutting board. All right, so this part of it is the flavor, the seasoning. I usually get a measuring cup and I mix it together in a measuring cup. And so what we have is we have a half an onion. Now I take my onions and I soak them in water. And I do that so that when you chop the onions, you don't cry. but also soaking the onion in water makes the skin come off of the onion really easy. You see how easy that skin came off? So that's why I soak my onion in water. So you can soak the onion in water anywhere from 10 minutes to 20 or 30 minutes. I wouldn't do it for more than that because there's no reason to, but just 10 minutes will be long enough for you to be able to take the skin off and hopefully you won't cry. And in Oriental medicine, they teach us that if you cry a lot when you chop the onions, then you're eating too many yin foods, which would be sweets and desserts, but also white flour, white rice. Those are all like yin foods. So if you cry too much, you might want to start looking at that and adjusting that when you chop your onion. So here's my cutting technique that I like to teach my students in all of my cooking classes. Interesting with Val's reaction to black pepper. Black pepper makes me cough. Oh, very interesting. All right, so we have our beautiful wooden cutting board here, and I'm going to put some water on the cutting board. This fills in the pores of the wood so the wood doesn't absorb the color and the odor of the vegetable that you're chopping. So I always have water on my cutting board. For the onion, you want to put flat side down. When you chop vegetables, you want flat side down. It's so much easier to chop like that than a wobbly vegetable. I've got my sharp vegetable knife. This is your best kitchen tool. Get yourself a nice, sharp vegetable knife. And then people usually ask, well, what kind of knife do you have, Val? Well, mine is a Caddy, C-A-D-D-I-E. This is the one I've used for over 25 years. It fits my hand very nicely. It's lightweight and it holds its sharpness too. Although I do sharpen my knives periodically because I use them a lot. When you chop your vegetable, you want your hand to be next to the blade. You see how close my hand is to the blade? This gives you the most force and pressure on the blade. Makes it very easy to chop vegetables. If you do this, or you do this, it makes it very hard to chop. You have to use more force and more pressure on the blade. So if just remember to hold the handle right here next to the knife, makes it so much easier to chop the onion. So we're going to take the onion, we're going to dice it. So you want to go with the lines straight up and down like so. Now I'm doing this technique where I'm holding the onion together, and I'll show you why that's important in a second, but I'm just chopping it like so. Now I'm going to turn the onion, chop straight up and down, and I get diced onion. So onion, when it's raw, is pungent. Onion, when it's cooked, is sweet. And then at the end, you can flip the onion down and keep chopping it. So a lot of my recipes start with onion because I absolutely love the flavor of onion. I love the sweetness that it imparts into the recipe. Onions have anti-inflammatory properties. So that's very important. We want to eat foods with anti-inflammatory properties because if you have inflammation in your system, you could experience things like joint pain, muscle pain, any type of pain in your body is from inflammation. Okay. In fact, all dis-ease that's happening in your body comes from chronic inflammation. So at any time you can eat foods that have anti-inflammatories, you're taking a step in the right direction. And if your diet is based in these macrobiotic principles, the macrobiotic diet, where we don't eat refined processed food, most of the food are going to help you create that anti-inflammatory environment in your body anyways. How about using sweet onions that are less pungent? You could use any type of onion. I use the yellow organic, but you could use a purple, you could use a white, you could use a sweet, any of them. But we are going to cook the onion. So the onion eventually at the end of the recipe will be sweet. It won't be that pungent flavor, just so you know. All right, so the next thing we need is 4 garlic cloves. So this is the best way to get the skin off of garlic. when I teach cooking classes in person, my students love doing this because they get their aggressions out, right? You put the garlic on the clove, or you put the garlic clove on the cutting board, put your knife on top of it, give it a whack, and it cracks the garlic. See how the skin cracks? And then the skin just comes right off and you get your garlic clove out of there. Of course, I said the skin comes right off, so while I'm demonstrating, it kind of stuck, but comes off. So garlic. Garlic has been used for thousands of years in herbal remedies because it has antibacterial properties, antifungal properties, antiviral properties. It's a fantastic healing herb, basically. So at any time, God forbid, you don't feel good or there's something going on with you where they're going to tell you you have to take a prescription antibiotic, which nobody wants to do. Nobody wants to do that, right? Because that kills all the good bacteria in your gut. So this is your natural antibiotic. If for any reason you have to go that route, garlic is. So garlic is pungent when it's raw. It kind of stays pungent even after you cook it. But anyways, this is the butt of the garlic. See that butt there? We can't eat that. That doesn't taste good. So we cut that little piece off, just like so. Get rid of all that. Now for this recipe, I'm going to put the garlic in slices. So we take a slice. And you'll see why the garlic actually is very decorative in this recipe. It goes on top of the tofu after the tofu is cooked. That's what the garlic does. It doesn't have to be perfect because, like I said, it's going on top of the recipe at the end. I'm going to put it in the little bowl here. And now, after we have chopped our garlic, what happens? Our fingers smell like garlic, right? So how do we get that garlic smell off of our fingers? Stainless steel sink. Turn the water on, take your fingers and rub it on the stainless steel, just like so. And your fingers won't smell like garlic. That's what stainless steel does for us. So that's a pretty cool tip right there. All right. And then we are going to put in our sauce 2 ingredients that is going to help this taste like Salisbury sauce. So we have our salty condiment, tamari, made from naturally fermented soybeans. And tofu is yin and tamari is yang. So we're kind of balancing the energies there. And we have brown rice cooking wine, which is called mirin. So we have 3 tablespoons of tamari. And we have 2 tablespoons of mirin. So this is our Salisbury sauce. All right, I am going to move the camera to the stove because we're going to start cooking. Move it over here.
So that's onion and garlic and shoyu and mirin.
The garlic is in a separate bowl.
Ah, it's separate. Okay.
Yeah, the onions and the mirin and the tamari are in the measuring cup. All right, so get yourself a sauteed pan. Now this one here I use because it's pink and it's pretty, but anyways, this is glass. So it's all natural and all healthy, but it's non-stick glass. I'm going to put it on a medium heat. I'm going to take approximately 1 tablespoon of organic olive oil. So this is heart healthy oil. Now the oil is not hot now. It's slowly heating up in the pan. I'm going to put the garlic in the olive oil like so. And I'm going to cook the garlic for a couple minutes until the garlic starts to brown. So this is interesting because in cooking, there's always an exception to the rule. So when I cook my garlic, usually I only cook my garlic for a minute because I don't want it to brown. But this recipe is the exception to the rule. We want the garlic to actually brown a little bit because it's going to go on top of the tofu Salisbury, again, as a garnish, and it's going to look really pretty. When you brown the garlic, it also becomes a little bit crunchy. So that's fun. All right, so this is going to hang out and brown. It just takes a minute. Now, when you cook with olive oil, you want the olive oil to slowly heat up because olive oil is a very delicate oil. So we don't want to reach a really hot, high temperature, which is again why I keep this on a medium setting. It's not high or hot, it's medium, okay? I wanted to tell everybody who's watching about a special event I have coming up that you can go to macroval.com and find out more about it, but it is my Healthy Seasonal Cooking Spring webinar. It's on Saturday, April 23rd, and myself and another chef, Chef Michelle Williams, who lives in California, we are going to teach recipes that are specifically for the spring season, using ingredients that are going to feed and nurture your liver, your gallbladder. And it is from 10 a.m. to 2:30 in the afternoon. Now that's Eastern Standard Time, where I am here in Michigan. And so it's kind of like an all-day event. And we have all these delicious recipes planned. I'm doing a barley dish that has asparagus, dandelion greens, and it features black garlic. And Chef Michelle is doing our dessert, which is going to be a lemon blueberry pudding. And we have other recipes planned too. And we have a special guest, Carrie Loeb, who's going to do a presentation about self-massage called Do-In that helps you heal, again, the organs for the springtime. So that's April 23rd. There's details about it on my website, macroval.com. All right. We are lightly sizzling. See how the garlic is lightly sizzling? That's it right there. Just let it hang out for a minute. Let it lightly sizzle. That's what's going on right now. So this is an excellent time while this is cooking just for a minute. Does anybody have any questions?
Of course I do. Can you talk about putting food in cold oil as opposed to heating the oil before you put the food in?
Yes. So again, olive oil is a delicate oil and you're not supposed to heat it at really high temperatures. So that's why I started in the pan, everything at room temperature and slowly heated it up. Now, if you were using a toasted sesame oil or a sesame oil, which by the way, you can use those oils in this recipe, but they're going to make the recipe kind of have a oriental flavor, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a very flavorful flavor. But I was trying to create here the illusion of like the Salisbury thing. So toasted sesame oil and sesame oil are stable oils, which means you can heat them at higher temperatures and they won't go rancid. So you can use those in more stir fry applications and things like that. So this is what it looks like. It's starting to brown. I'm going to turn just a little bit, some of it over. So we kind of brown on each side, just like that. Okay. All right. Any more questions? Val can try clicking on her very small box to enlarge herself. Well, I wish I could do that. I don't know. Let me see.
No, the person has to do it. They
No,
have
the
to
person-
pin you.
Oh, well,
The
yeah.
person who's asking needs to pin you.
No, I
Oh,
have
well,
done that.
She did that. And now I
But if
just
she's in another, option, she won't see you big. So the person who asked, there's an option of pinning Belle. When you touch the screen where she is, and you click your más derecha, your your right finger, then it will open an option of chat, of pin or chat. So put the pin, and you will
Selma, I
see her
did that. Ya lo he
Yeah.
hecho.
I think we all individually had to do that, because when I just went and did that for myself, I now have a bigger screen and I can
Oh,
see
good.
myself better. So I guess
Great.
everybody has to do that. I did not know that. I didn't know everybody had to do that. It's so interesting with this virtual, isn't it? We learn something all the time. Like, okay, this improves it. This makes it better. So anyways, I had to pull the garlic out of the pan, because this is what you want it to look like. You want it to be brown. You don't want it to get cooked anymore. So like I said, I took a slotted spoon and I just took it out like so. And I didn't want the oil to get any hotter, so I removed it off the heat just for a few minutes, because now this oil is infused with garlic flavor. So this is like a garlic infused oil. Here's our tofu. Now we put the tofu into the pan, and we have just a very light sizzle. It's not like a strong, hot sizzle. Again, so we're cooking at an awesome temperature here. All right, so medium heat. Now what we're going to do, we are going to brown the tofu on one side, flip it over, brown it on the other side, and then we're going to add our delicious sauce. So we have a little bit of browning time. Can I tell you like one of my best success stories? So I've been, as I mentioned, I've been teaching for 25 years. I've been counseling for about 5 years. And I do specific cooking also. I personal chef for people who have lung cancer, people that have arthritis, things like that. But my best success story is my dad. So I changed and became macrobiotic, and my family is looking at my food like, what happened? Like, what is this? She's eating seaweed, right? What is this? And my parents, very loving, wonderful people, they put up with it. In fact, they were the ones that were most open to try my recipes in the beginning. But then about 6 or 7 years after I started my journey, my dad announces that he has prostate cancer. And I said to my parents, I go, well, you know, it's up to you, because it's always a personal decision what another person does. But if you want, I'll help you. I'll help you change your diet. They did. They jumped aboard the Macrobiotic bandwagon, and I went out there and I worked with my mom and my dad, and I taught them the basic principles and everything. So my dad changed his diet. He did not take any medication. He didn't go the medical route at all. And his doctor told him at that time, well, you can do that, but it won't make any difference. Well, my dad proved him wrong, because he healed himself from prostate cancer using food. So I started my parents on their journey. Now, in the beginning, of course, when you have cancer, you've got to go on a basic macrobiotic diet. You got to start from the basic. Like, this is fancy. This is fancy macrobiotics, right? So, but when you're in a healing mode, you know, you have to eat a basic, but that's what he did. And so that's been, I think 20 years or almost 20 years. All right, so I'm flipping it over. We've got a slight brown on one side. I'm flipping it over. All right, so my dad's doing good, except for he does have a little bit of arthritis, where I told him to stop eating tomatoes, and he wouldn't do that because he loves tomatoes. But anyways, 2 years ago, he has Meniere's disease. Now, if you don't know what Meniere's disease, it's an inner ear problem. And my dad has lost a lot of his hearings, but we think the Meniere's disease came about when he accidentally fell off a ladder, hit his head. But anyways, Meniere's disease is a debilitating disease, and you become dizzy and you fall over and you have these episodes. And my dad, this was happening to him. The worst is he fell over, and my mom tried to catch him, and then both of them fell. So I said, all right, you want me to help you with Meniere's disease? He's like, yeah. So I did a lot of research about Meniere's disease, because when you have that disease, you're very limited as what you can eat. But so I put him on a very, very strict diet, and he ate it. He was very willing to do it. I am so happy to report he doesn't have dizzy spells. He hasn't had dizzy spells in a year from the food choices. Made a huge difference. So that's my huge success story. All right.
That's
We are at the-
wonderful.
Can I
You're at
ask a
the-
question, Valerie? Are there
Yeah,
different
just-
levels? Okay, go ahead, go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to put this in the pan because it's time. And then,
Okay.
yes, by all means. All right, put it in the pan like so. And then you just let it kind of hang out, okay? The onions are going to cook, and the little bit of flour that's in there is going to mix with it, and it's going to become thick. So we're going to let it hang out on one side, and then I'm going to flip it over. What was your question?
If there are different levels of seriousness for the prostate cancer that affect how it's dealt with.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, are you asking about different levels? Sure. There's people that, just find out that they have it, or they're just going towards it. And then there's people that have it very severe, very bad. So I was blessed in that my dad did discover it at an early stage. And so he was able to reverse it. And when I do consultations too, I take into account everything. I go into a person's history. I go into what are they eating every day and what's going on with them. It's kind of difficult for someone to just give, you can give general suggestions, like the general macrobiotic diet, which is so healing and so wonderful, but you can't really get into specifics until you know the person's condition and everything that's going on with it. Yeah. It smells so good in here. We have this beautiful mirin. Mirin is sweet. So I have this but there's also the salty tamari, which I love what it smells like. So we've got like the salty sweetness going on here. It smells wonderful. All right. What are some other questions? I'm going to flip it over.
Did I miss what happened to the onions? Where are they?
Okay, yeah, so the onions we put in the measuring cup with the mirin and the tamari. That's where the onions were. So just a minute ago, I poured the sauce, which includes the mirin, the tamari, and the onions. I poured it over, and now it's cooking. Terrific energy from Chef Val. Thank you. Do we have to use oat flour? No, you don't have to use oat flour. You can use whatever your favorite type of flour is. It'll work in this recipe. I do prefer whole grain flours as opposed to nut flours. And nut flours are fine if that's what you want to use. It's just, they're high fat. I mean, if you grind nuts up, that's a lot of fat. Whole grains on the other side are complex carbohydrate. They give the body energy. And I like the texture of the whole grain flours. In my upcoming cookbook, which is all about desserts, I use whole grain flours. And by the way, sign up for my newsletter on macroval.com. There's places to sign up for Val's newsletter, and you get sent newsletters telling you about everything that I'm teaching, all the upcoming cooking classes, but you'll also get an email when the new dessert cookbook comes out. All right. All right. So any more questions? Doesn't everybody want to know how I discovered macrobiotics and how I got into macrobiotics? People ask me that question. That's usually one of the questions people ask. All right. So I was a little girl growing up in the 80s, and are all your classes on Saturday? No, most of my classes are on Wednesdays. I do once a month teach a class on a Monday. I call it Macro Monday cooking classes, featuring a standard macrobiotic recipe. Coming up on April, I think it's the 11th, it's a Monday, I'm teaching how to make a colorful pressed salad for springtime with a creamy dressing. So that's my Monday cooking class. All the other classes are Wednesday. So I was a girl in the 80s growing up, watching television, and I had a heartthrob. It was Dirk Benedict, who played Starbuck on Battlestar Galactica. He also was Face on the A-Team. And so I knew that I like heard that he had prostate cancer and he healed himself and he wrote a book. I wanted this book and I looked for it. And then as I got older, I would go into not health food stores, excuse me, I'm jumping ahead. I would go into bookstores and I'd ask them about this book. Nobody knew what I was talking about. It wasn't until I went into a health food store and there on the shelf was Confessions of a Kamikaze Cowboy. I tell this story like sun rays shined on it and the angels sang as the book was revealed to me. I could not put this book down. This is his journey of how he healed himself from prostate cancer. And this is my introduction to macrobiotics. And I went, what is this? This completely makes sense. This is the way we're supposed to live. And I was immediately drawn to the energy of the food. That I was like, the energy of the food, that completely makes sense. Let me just check this. Yep, we need to pull it off. Let me get something pretty to put it on. All right, so the sauce has thickened. All right, so we can look and see, thicken, yum, 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 yum. So we'll put it on a plate. All right, so after I read Dirk Benedict's book, I went to health food stores and I just bought as many macro books as I could find. And then I found out there was a lady here in Michigan who was teaching macrobiotic cooking classes. And I went and I took a couple of her classes. And then she announced she needed an assistant. So I went to work for this lady for 2 years. I basically learned macrobiotic cooking. And then I went and I started personal chefing, cooking for people. And then I was creating recipes. So I thought, well, I'll start teaching cooking classes. So I started teaching 25 years ago. And so that's my journey. I was blessed to be able to attend lectures by Ed Esco. He came to Michigan when I first started being macro. He came to Michigan and I attended all of his lectures when he came to Michigan. And then the last time that Ed came to Michigan and he gave a lecture, I think it was 8 or 9 years ago, I actually worked with him and I created all the food that he served for his lecture. What about the glass nonstick pan? What about it? You know what? It's not a fancy pan. I bought it because it's pink. My signature color is pink. So I bought it because it's pretty. Most of the time I use Scan pans, SCANPAN. If you're not familiar with Scan pans, they are top of the line, best pans. All right, so I pulled it out, right? And I put it on a plate. And now we take a little garlic and we put it on top, like so, and we decorate it.
Who was the teacher that you apprenticed with?
Her name was Lenore Baum.
Mm.
And she went to both the Kushi Institute and the Vegas Study Center.
Beautiful. Very nice.
What it looks like. I want to get a fork and show you what the middle of it looks like. Oh, the forks are over here. So let's go back over here for a minute. And great time for more questions.
Is Lenore still teaching?
No, no, she's not teaching anymore. The last I heard, she moved down south, somewhere down south. So she's not in Michigan anymore. All right, so let me show you what. I think it's easier to show like this. Yeah, so when you bite into this, you have the tofu is soft in the middle, has a little bit of a firmer texture on the outside where it was brown. We have this wonderful, like sweet, salty sauce. And what's really cool about the mirin also has like a pungent, kind of sour flavor, which again creates the illusion of Salisbury. And then the sweet onions, that's actually my favorite part, is the sweet onions. And then we have the little bit of crunchy garlic on the top too. So this is an excellent side dish for your brown rice. In fact, in this cookbook, I have a brown rice Salisbury that's a great complement to the Salisbury tofu. The two of them go together. If I only buy one of your books, which one should I buy? What do you serve it with? Oh, I just answered that, the brown rice. Yeah. Lenore's husband retired, and did they go RVing thing? I seem to recall that they did. They did have an RV. I do remember that. All right. So this is my first book, Perceptions. I would suggest if you're going to get one, you might want to start with this one. I actually redid it because it came out 20 years ago. This has my sweet potato salad, everybody's favorite. This has tempeh burgers, the first recipe I ever created with a blank piece of paper. I still make those tempeh burgers. This has my macaroni and mochi, which is my healthy vegan version of macaroni and cheese. Macaroni and cheese was my favorite dish as a kid. It was like one of the first recipes my mom ever taught me. My mom is my first cooking teacher. I give her all the credit. And she tells this story when I was 9 years old. I was creating this recipe and I called her and said, hey, I don't have this ingredient. I'm at home and I'm 9 years old. She goes, wait till I get home. I'll help you. Well, by the time she got home, I had already improvised, used some other ingredient and finished the recipe. So this, I would suggest this might be their first one to get. And then I have cooking for the spring season, cooking for the summer season. So again, this is following the 5 transformations of energy. I do eventually plan on having 5 of these books covering all the seasons. And if you don't know what the 5 transformations of energy is, go take a look, macroval.com, at the upcoming webinar I told you about. And vegan cooking with kids. If you have kids, this is a great one. This was so much fun. I volunteered to teach kids at an after-school program. I did grade school, middle school, and high schoolers. These kids were not vegan. I think the high schoolers had a couple vegetarian people, but other than that, they weren't. They loved everything I taught them. I taught them, it wasn't fried, it was a baked sweet potato fries. I did sweet potato fries, rutabaga fries, turnip fries, and carrot fries. And of course, the sweet potato ones were their favorite, but I said, what is your second favorite? It was rutabaga fries. And most of these kids had never had rutabaga before. So these are all recipes for, they go from young kids where we created these cute little fruit critters all the way up to pasta primavera is in here because the high schoolers wanted to learn that. I also have brown rice nori rolls. The high schoolers wanted to learn how to make brown rice nori rolls. And when I brought that nori in there, they said, can we taste that? And I was like, well, of course you can taste this, but it's a sea vegetable. And they tasted it. They went, hey, this is good. Can I have more? And I went, absolutely. Here, have more. Now I've taught adults that are afraid of sea vegetables. They literally are afraid to eat the sea vegetables. And these high schoolers were like, hey, can I try that? I'm like, absolutely. So this was a fantastic, this was so much fun to create because these are the recipes I taught. We love your number 7 energy story as a 9-year-old. Oh, thank you. Greatly appreciate that. Also, if you like my recipes and you enjoy this video, I have a YouTube channel. I just uploaded a brown rice asparagus salad on the YouTube channel. And I also have a Patreon group. Patreon is an extension of YouTube. And if you join for a very small cost, you get unlimited access to all of my cooking videos. And I add videos every single week. I'm very active. And so all the links are on macroval.com. Oh, I wanted to ask too, here's a question I got for you. So I host a radio show twice a month. And starting this year, I kind of changed the format and I'm interviewing people. So if you have a story about how you became macrobiotic, I like to hear positive, healing stories, or because everybody has a story to tell and everybody's story is interesting. right? So if you have a story that you would like to tell on my radio show, again, you can email me through my website. Please contact me and I can set you up as an upcoming guest to be on my radio show. And then we can, talk. I love hearing people's stories, about how they discovered macrobiotics and how it's changed their life. I love that. Let's see, we still have a few more minutes. Any more questions?
Yes, for the ones who are not American, what is Salisbury?
Oh, that's a good question. So Salisbury it's traditionally usually made with steak, and they create this gravy. The gravy usually has mushrooms and onions and garlic in it. My recipe, I didn't go with the mushrooms, although you could add mushrooms to this recipe. It would be absolutely delicious. And so it's a steak that's served with this Salisbury gravy. And what's signature in the Salisbury gravy is wine. Now, I don't cook with wine, so that's why I chose the brown rice mirin, because this is the only wine that I cook with, because it's naturally fermented. It's made from brown rice. It's good for you. So that's what Salisbury is. It's a gravy that has wine in it. They usually serve it over steaks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Val, I want to thank you. You've done a masterful job. You can see that I love that you're so easy and take your time and explain. And I really enjoyed the class very much. And I appreciate your preparation and your knowledge. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm always creating recipes. I still, for 25 years, I tell people the average American diet is so boring. When you switch over and you eat healthy whole foods from Mother Nature based in macrobiotic principles, the possibilities are endless, in my opinion, as a chef that creates recipes. And I love my students. My students always challenge me, or I love feedback, like, what do you want to learn? What do you want to learn? And so a couple of weeks ago, somebody said, vegan deviled eggs. And I went, what? I never even heard of that. They go, oh yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. All right. So I went in the kitchen and I created vegan deviled eggs. I'm going to teach how to make that in April in what I call Easter dinner. So I'm going to teach how to make vegan deviled eggs, seitan ham with a gravy. And I made a biscuit that's cornmeal and brown rice. And I'm going to serve that with a sweet potato scalloped. There's no vegan cheese in it. It's just a nice creamy sauce.
Val,
So
you're killing me here.
Yeah, so I created this Easter dinner. It's colorful, it's beautiful, it's pretty. So those are all recipes that I just created a couple weeks ago, just off the top of my head, to create this Easter dinner, And coming up Wednesday, lemon tofu cheesecake with cherries on top, served with Aquafaba whipped cream.
Mm-hmm.
That's this coming Wednesday. It's dessert. And all my desserts are brown rice syrup, so they're all healthy. Aquafaba ice cream, or whipped cream, if you don't know what it is. Aquafaba is the liquid that you save after you cook beans. And it's so versatile. You can do all these crazy things with it. So I'm going to make whipped cream. Yeah, so that's coming up Wednesday.
Yeah.
Thank you for your creativity and generosity. You're most welcome. I love teaching classes and I love creating recipes. So it's been a pleasure to show you this recipe. And I hope that you all get a chance to connect with me, sign up for the newsletter, Facebook, Macroval Food. And please join me on the live every Wednesday at 8 o'clock, where I do cooking tips. It's a lot of fun, conversation going, and you can ask me questions. Yeah. And thank you so much for having me. Greatly appreciate it.